And we're live. Welcome everyone to my post-race Chinwag for the 2024 Australian Grand Prix roll intro. I'm a fraction late, but if you're watching here live on YouTube or after the fact on YouTube, you might forgive me for what I have on my shoulder, okay? I wanted to get him involved. You can argue I could have maybe planned better, so that wasn't a minute late, but I like to think Minton will allow you my forgiveness, right? Welcome, everyone. Thank you all for coming. Ewan, Ludd, AV, Wimbleway, Sebastian, Shelby, Tommy, Freya, Tina, etc., etc. Also, I believe I am live on Twitch. I should be live on Twitch. I don't know if I am. I've got adaptive bitrate, so hopefully it is working. Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. I can see Tommy, Xavier and Sam on the Twitch chat. I think seems to be the connection's fine on YouTube and it seems to be trash on Twitch. Not really too sure why. But never mind, right? We're gonna try this multi-stream it out. We'll get there sorted, right? We'll get it sorted eventually. Okay? Minton looks excited. Are you excited to be on Twitch, mate? You excited to talk about the Australian Grand Prix? I think he is. I think he is. Whether you are here live on YouTube, whether you're here after the fact, or whether you want to listen just with your ears on audio-only platforms, be that Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Chrome, your TV, anyone watching me on your telly, all right? Right? Show your parents that they might, legitimize, right? It's funny, isn't it? Like I've had some cool opportunities with this job, but whenever it's something that's broadcast on the actual normal telly, that's when the family understand it, right? Did Minton wake up at 4 a.m. for the race? No, he did not, and neither did his father. I was not up for the race. I tell you what, I'm not gonna lie. Weekends like this one, God, I'm glad I'm not doing last lap anymore. I would have had to get up if I wanted to do last lap for this race, right? Which, if you don't know, it was the live show I did with Niran last year and a half. We did it for a year and a half. Great fun to do, of course. But races like this, I mean, I would have had to be up. I would have had to be up about 2:30 to leave at 3 to get to the studio. Wait, no, because the race started at 4 actually. So no, I'd have had to leave my house at just after 2 to get to the studio for 3. So I'd have had to be up at like 1:30. It's basically not worth sleeping. Then I've got to drive there, drive back as well. Not ideal. But don't worry. There's something called watching it after and avoiding spoilers. I got up at about 9:30 UK time. Completely missed the race. Had a nice day out, very sunny today with family. And came back, watched the race with Minton, with Hannah. No spoilers. Happy days when he's near and coming on the show. Listen, I don't have guests on the Chinwag. Maybe one day, but I'd love to get Niran back on. I've done some bits with Quadrant, actually, on Quadrant Plays, where me and Niran have reunited. So check that out when you got a minute. I did not avoid spoilers. Oh, Mickey. Yeah, I mean, look, it's tough, but, sometimes you just got to put the phone away, okay? You just got to put the phone away. Right, can we please get a race rating out of 10, please, and thank you. And again, the stream preview doesn't seem to be working on Twitch, but apparently I'm live. I don't know. Apparently I'm live on Twitch as well. Who knows? Right, give me some numbers. Okay, we're getting 5, 8, 6, 7, 4, 7, 8, 4, 6. And again, 10 is the perfect race. 1 is absolute I mean, I guess 0 is technically the worst you can be. You balancing up there, right? I've got a type, mate. So just keep balanced, okay? We've worked this out. I can go hands free with Minton on my shoulder, and it works most of the time. He has almost fallen off a few times. I'm not gonna lie. Right, race rating out of 10. Let's go for Okay, I'm seeing a few 5. I'm gonna go 5 or lower, a 6, a 7, or an 8 or higher. just judging off of you lot in live chat, the 1,075 of you here on YouTube and the 39 of you here on Twitch, that's kind of but the poll's only on YouTube. Sorry, Twitch. Okay, sorry. But this is not many people who restream prioritize the YouTube stream, but it's my bread and butter, you know? My bread and butter, isn't it, Minton? Love it, right. Okay, ooh, interesting. 401 of you voted. 14% of 5 or lower. 33% gave this one a 6. 32% now. 40% of you have given it a 7. 14% an 8 or higher. Now, of course, there was a very big incident at the start. I really need a haircut. Damn, I really need a haircut. These sides are getting too long and this top's a little bit. And, you know, the regression is happening. But that's what happens when you turn 31. So yeah, 40% of you have given it a 7. Look, obviously there was a big incident at the start which caught a lot of excitement amongst many people, I can imagine. A lot of shock because it's the first time in 43 races that Max Verstappen was not going to cross the finish line. Since the Australian Grand Prix in 2022, in fact, was when his car broke then, wasn't it? He had I think it was a hydraulic issue or something. So you lot have probably, 7's getting the most votes. You're probably averaging out at just a low 7. 7 point something low. 16% have given it 8 or higher. 30% 6. 14% 5 or lower. For me, the 2024 Australian Grand Prix was a 6 out of 10. It was slightly above average. I think the intrigue, ultimately, of Max not being part of the race fed into a slightly, higher race rating that maybe it deserves. But ultimately, I think, that does reflect how interesting and exciting the race is when the person who's been literally dominating in a way that we haven't seen domination, in this period that he's been. He would have had 10 in a row again. He's already got 10 in a row. If he'd have won this race, he'd have had 10 in a row again because he won the last chunk of last year, obviously before Singapore. After Singapore. And then he's won all of them at the start of this year. Until now. So, and yes, Minton. Minton is a 10. I reckon Minton's a 10. We don't need to poll people, Hannah, on that one. I think it's clear to say that Minton's a 10. It was a 5, but Max not winning makes it a 6. You're kind of right, Casper. And again, Verstappen fans, you don't be offended by that, right? Because ultimately, intrigue is going to feed excitement. And even if Carlos was pretty comfortable in the end, wasn't he? Didn't really get a challenge at all. But the fact that it wasn't Max makes it more interesting because Max is it's just been a given, isn't it? And you can actually argue, given the race pace numbers we were seeing in practice, maybe we were kind of robbed of a bit of a battle for the lead. Now, of course, obviously Max had his issues straight away. Carlos was able to make that overtake. If Max has no issues, probably still wins. But the practice numbers on race pace indicated that the Red Bull wasn't massive as holistically hooked up as it has been in previous races. So maybe we were robbed of a bit of a scrap for the lead. Maybe. Checo certainly seems to think so. He seems to think that, the Red Bulls were going to... Which, obviously, he would say that because of where he finished. But at the same time, he did appear to have floor damage, at least according to Christian Horner. We'll get into it. I doubt it as well, Sava, but you never know, right? You never know. There is going to be a time, at some point, okay, probably not pre-2026, we're going to go into a race weekend where the Red Bull is not the quickest car on race pace. That time, that day will come, okay? I don't think we were there today, but maybe we were. Maybe we were. I'm so in love with Minton as well, Solvik. I'm so loving Minton. Look at him, he's just so chilled out, isn't he? Sorry to audio-only listeners. Also, I haven't recorded this one, which is annoying, so I'm going to have to download it afterwards. So the audio's not going to be quite as pristine as it typically is, but never mind. Never mind. 6 out of 10. I'm happy with that. And we've got a good chunk to talk about, right? We've already gone 10 minutes and I've barely covered any of the details of the race. So I would say I'm apologising for that, but I'm not sorry. It's a 31 view. I don't know if, I mean, it seems that the Twitch version's working, but hey, let's crack on, right, with the race result for the 2024 Australian Grand Prix. Carlos Sainz wins, Charles Leclerc P2 with fastest lap in the end, but ultimately it seems that Charles just, he made a bit of a Hail Mary move in Q3, changing his front wing angle, didn't pay off for him, and in the race again, it just felt like, Leclerc, part of him maybe feels like he could have challenged Sainz if he was allowed to, but I don't think. I think Carlos just was the better driver this weekend, all things considered, in my humble opinion. Because my opinion is very humble, always. Thank you, Not Yet Lemon, by the way, for the super chat. I'm a Sainz super fan, and I still don't understand the people that say this was an incredible banger. Yes, Max DNF'd, but there wasn't a lot of action. It's true. Objectively, it wasn't a banger, okay? It clearly wasn't. But there's a little bit more intrigue because it's not Max winning, right? And that is going to inherently make it more exciting, because when you take Max away, this field in F1 these other 19 is as close as it's ever been. That's what inherently makes it, even though Sainz was pretty comfortable in the end, wasn't he? Inherently, that is going to make it more interesting because Max is just too good. Suffering from success. And thank you, Versatility, as well, for the super chat. Makes you wonder if the regulations have made Max as Sainz run away with it, like Max, or maybe more about being in front than anything else. Look, I think that I would say that Sainz didn't run away with it in the same way that Max has been able to. I think Sainz was pushing fully. I think you're seeing Max open up these big gaps and winning comfortably, and it's like, is he even in, is he even in sixth gear? Is he just like kind of stick it in fifth and just put it along, and he's leaving a little bit, which allows him to obviously save his tyres better and etc. etc. He's just driving at that kind of level. And it takes something like this, which, F1 is as reliable as ever these days, but it doesn't mean they're bulletproof. Graphic is incorrect. Hamilton wasn't classified. Should be a DNF. That is true. Henry, I forgot to draw the X. Because it wouldn't be a Tommo stream if you don't make a mistake, You don't make a mistake. Was Russell... I feel like Russell was classified, no? Because didn't he crash, within a certain... You have to... As long as you've completed so much of the race, I think you do get classified, right? So I think you're correct on the Hamilton one, but incorrect on the Russell one. Anyway, P3, P4 for McLaren's. Piastri, another P4 on the board. So he's enjoying those P4s. Well, I'm sure he's not enjoying them because, it's close. But not quite a podium, isn't it? Especially at his home race as well. But ultimately, Norris did seem to have a good chunk more pace. Piastri made that little mistake as well towards the end of that lap when he locked up and went wide onto the grass, right? So I think Norris did deserve the podium over Piastri for sure. But it's getting better for Oscar. It's definitely getting better. Perez P5 did apparently have floor damage, according to Christian Horner. To what extent that's affected his performance is impossible to say, but given how aero-sensitive these cars are with the ground effect, apparently it was Alonso's tear-off. So obviously Alonso and Russell, that was a whole separate conversation, which we will get into, don't you worry. But yeah, apparently Alonso's tear-off also messed up Checo's race, apparently. But to what extent, we don't know. Lance Stroll, very low-key P6. Yuki Tsunoda, P7. We'll get onto him. Oh, Yuki. Alonso, 22nd post-race time penalty, down to P8. Hulkenberg, Magnussen, P9 and 10. Double point scoring for Haas. Well done. Very good. Haas are cooking. Albon, P11. The swap did not deliver points. Would Logan have finished ahead of Ricciardo, Gasly, Bottas, Joe, Ocon? We will never know. But it wasn't quite a point in the end. Close but no cigar for Alex Albon. Daniel Ricciardo, P12. Want to forget for him. Gasly, 13. Bottas, Joe, 14, 15. Sauber, once again. I could not believe my eyes when they, not once, Not even, well, I think they had 2 dodgy pit stops and then Joe had gearbox issue, didn't he? Either way, it was like every time a Sauber pitted, the pit stop was a long time. These lot stink, I'm sorry. It's not acceptable. It's completely unacceptable. Thank you, Wincup, for the super chat. But I know people won't take Checo's word for it, but really seems Red Bull Racing fumbled the setup. Would have been interesting to see Max fight without the brake fail. They were struggling, Red Bull, on the setup for sure. Again, it's when you've got floor damage, it kind of makes making any analysis very difficult, because Checo was progressing up until the point he passed Alonso, and then it did seem to slow down. And I remember thinking at the time, like, where is he just run through these tyres? And Perez said on the radio, didn't he? He was like, we've pushed on these tyres too much. But then if there's a tear off, taking like 20 points of downforce, I think Christian said, around that, then a lack of downforce is what causes your tyres to fall off more than anything. High downforce means good tyre life. Low downforce, bad tyre life, because, tyres moving across the asphalt. You want to sticking your car down, it keeps the tyres nice and in good nick, See, look, who needs Autosport the race when you got this massive mind and this huge head and this terrible haircut? Come on. And then, of course, the Mercedes both out of the points. Hamilton wasn't a good weekend. And then also the car broke. And then George Russell, of course, coming up short, wasn't it? Not good. Verstappen, broken. Sargent didn't even start. So I do advocate sticky cars, Techno Andrew. I do indeed. Right, so how does this affect the driver standings? Well, Max is only 4 points ahead of Charles Leclerc, who's only 1 point ahead of Sergio Perez, who's only 6 points ahead of Carlos Sainz. We have the most competitive title fight of all time. Numbers don't... Time people say numbers don't lie, stats don't lie. This right here is lies, okay? This does not reflect the championship we are seeing, because Max is only 4 points ahead of Charles Leclerc. But you know what? Early on in the season, a DNF, that's what it does to you. Championship back on. Well, look, if Ferrari can pull their finger out, but they're going to have to hurry up about it. I didn't read the article. I saw a headline saying about like, Vasseur wants to push through Suzuka updates or something. He smells blood, says Fred. Also, I'm going to return Minton because he is actually, my shoulder's starting to go a bit numb. So, to everyone here watching on YouTube and Twitch, of course, I say bye to Minton. Goodbye. And if Hannah's still in the chat, Han, he's coming your way. So, release the hound, as Mr. Burns would say. I'll just leave this on the jar in case he wants to come back in. There we go. Bye, Minton. Good Minton. Right, here we go. That's better. Oh, I can stretch out now. There we go. Lovely. Right, so Verstappen 51, Leclerc 47, Perez 46, Sainz 40, Piastri Norris, just 1 point between them now. Oscar slightly ahead of Norris, but close there. Russell, only 18 points. Big points scoring opportunity fumbled today. Fernando, 16. Stroll, good drive from Stroll. 9 points. Hamilton, 8. Tsunoda, 6. Big jump up for the Racing Bulls from nil points to 6 points on the board. Ollie Behrman still up there. Big up, Ollie. 6 points. Hulkenberg, 3. Magnussen, 1. And then Albon's 15th because he's got how many P11s? He's got at least 2 P11s, doesn't he, Albon? I can't remember if he's got any more than that. So yeah, that's how the driver standings sit after 3 of 24 race weekends. Still a long way to go. Team standings: Red Bull 97, Ferrari 93, 4 points. McLaren 55, Mercedes 26, Aston Martin 25, Racing Bull 6, Haas 4. Alpine still at the back, but you know what? Actually, the team I feel most down about, I think the worst team on the grid right now is actually Sauber, to be honest. But Racing Bull's getting there. Exactly, DH, exactly. Right, okay, cool. So this is how we stand. Now, obviously, on Thursday, we did pre-race Chinwag, predictions. So let's reflect, starting with my predictions for this race. How did I fare? Minton's back. Yeah, the door opened because Minton's back. He's here. There. He wants to go into his bed. I went to pick him up and he just ran away. Right, okay. You can stay there, mate. It's fine. Let me just... Hang on. Don't worry, I'm just moving some bits in the background so Minton can go... Right, okay. Yeah, go on. Do you want to get your Snuggie? Right, remember Snuggie? This one with lots of sausage dot on it? Yeah, there we go. That's what he wants. That's what he wants. Okay, we're fine. Honestly, you can't get the help these days. Right, my predictions were as follows, and they stunk. Race winner Max Verstappen, wrong. Banger drive Oscar Piastri. It wasn't a terrible drive from Oscar, not by any stretch, right? But he was a fair chunk slower than Lando. He made his mistake as well, and got out qualified. Certainly not a banger drive from Oscar Piastri. Clanger drive Lewis Hamilton. Now, of course, Lewis, his car broke through no fault of his own, but up until that point, it was a bad weekend. Went out in Q2. I think on my pre-race, a few people misunderstood when I was talking about Lewis Hamilton with setups. Like, in 2022, I do think he was sacrificing himself somewhat for these experimental setups to try and fix the car. I think now, he's just messing around too much. Like, I think I put the responsibility more on him for not being as close to George versus in 2022. I think, he did what he had to do for the team. I just think now he's kind of in a bit of desperation trying to mess around with setups, and George is doing a much better job in that same car. So, yeah, I think Lewis was having a bit of a shocker up to that point. And if he had finished the race, it's harsh to put him in clanger because the car did break and you don't know what would happen for the rest of the race, but it was pretty clanging up until that point, I think, for sure. Banger team McLaren, they're up there for sure, 3-4. But I think there's another team that stands out. Maybe two teams actually that stand out. Maybe three. We'll get into that. Clanger team Mercedes, again, a maybe, but there are worse teams out there. When Sauber have that many mess-ups in pit stops and their Joe's front wing disintegrated for no real reason going over a curb that pretty much everyone else went over. It's a spoiler as to what my predictions, my bangers and clangers, should I say, might be. So mine weren't great this weekend, and yours, well, look, better than mine. So well done you. You can have that, right? Obviously wrong about Max race winner. Banger drive. You know what? You put 25% of you put Lance Stroll as banger drive. Did he have the best drive of the weekend? No. Did he have a drive that was... Did he have a top 10 drive of the weekend? I think yes. Very, very clean. No mistakes. Barely saw him. P6 in the end. Out-qualified Fernando as well, technically. He had a decent drive. He didn't have a banger drive, but it was pretty decent from Lance. So actually, well done. Well done. We'll get onto the penalty. Don't you worry, Doff. We'll get onto it. It was good, but only good for Lance. Yeah, but I mean, it was good for Lance. Lance has got his moments, and I think, he had a good weekend. Kept it clean. Clanger drive, same. I said Lewis, you said Lewis, same. Banger team Ferrari. Come on. They're up there, aren't they, surely? Clanger team Mercedes, we agreed on that as well. So, yeah. Anyway, those were the predictions. But what about the real thing? Let's start with my bangers and clangers, shall we? Banger drive, and there's two names. There are literally two names. And I really wanted to go for the other one, but all things considered, it's Carlos Sainz. Not only did he do an incredible job in qualifying, you can argue, he did have a bit of an issue on his final lap, that he could have maybe got pole, could have been closer to Max. But either way in the race, capitalises on Max's misfortune, keeps the place, delivers a very solid drive, was never under any real threat from Leclerc. Leclerc might try and claim that he could have... I think Carlos had him. I think Carlos had him licked this weekend. I do. And to do that, 16 days after having his appendix out? Come on. That for me was the redeeming, defining factor that gave banger drive to Carlos Sainz, for sure. Yuki, we'll get into... The Yuki loving is coming, don't you worry, right? We'll get into Yuki. But banger drive, Carlos Sainz, vamos. Shop window. Jesus, shop window, man. I mean, you got to look at Mercedes and be like, Toto, bruv, you gotta sign this guy up. If you can, you gotta sign this guy up. Whoever gets Carlos Sainz has done a phenomenal bit of business. Unless Alonso goes to Mercedes, because maybe Kimi Antonelli's not ready. But I mean, Kimi's not doing a bad job in F2 by any stretch. But you know, Carlos is proven. Sainz to Red Bull. I don't know if maybe. Whatever seat he gets, he's going to be in demand, and rightly so. Carlos Sainz. Vamos. Vamos indeed. Clanger drive. It's Daniel Ricciardo. I'm sorry. I know George did crash out from a good position, but there's more to it than just that at face value. Daniel, bad quali. Track limits, can't be doing that. You can't be doing track limits, Daniel. You can't afford to make those mistakes. Puts him back. Yuki delivers 6 points, P7. Daniel's P12. You lot know like that. My belief in Ricciardo going into this year was strong. It's waning. I know we're 3 races in, but there's still 3 races. Races? Jonathan Ross? Races. It's a sample. Spinotto, thank you for the super chat. 249. Alonso has to be clanging for that malicious move. Ooh, we know where you sit, Spinotto, on that one. We'll get into it. We'll get into it. Don't you worry. Banger team, Ferrari, obviously. And clanger team, Sauber. I mean, it's for me, clanger team, Sauber is the most clear and obvious one here. Their pit stops, how? Their terrible gearbox. Like, front wing disintegrated for no obvious reason. It's just, no. So these are my 4. Okay. Thank you, Versatility, by the way, for the super chat. Alonso's penalty conveniently keeps Russell ahead of Alonso and Merck ahead of Aston. Convenient conspiracy. Tinfoil. Well, I saw Johnny Herbert was catching a lot of sleighs. Catching a lot of strays is what I meant to say. Because I believe he's one of the stewards, right? Yeah. And obviously him and Alonso had their past transfer. I mean, that's clip from that clip of Alonso and Stewart having their little so long ago, but whatever. Aston haven't appealed. Yeah, Mike Crack did say, basically, we'll move on. We'll get into it. Stop. Their time will come. Don't you worry. Thank you, it's Jay, by the way, also for the super chat. As a DR3 fan, it sucks to see all the negativity being thrown at him, but do you think he can actually return to form? Will this be the end for Danny? Confidence is the key word, Jay. Don't worry, we will talk about Daniel Ricciardo a lot more, but yeah, it's tough for any driver to pull themselves out of this position. And when you look at Daniel's recent career history, it does throw up more questions than answers. That's something I don't think anyone can deny. I thank you, Matt, as well, for the super chat. I'd be surprised if it's either Sainz or Alonso to go to Merck in 25. It'd be a backward step for both of them. But I mean, Sainz hasn't got an option. I mean, of the options available to Sainz, what is the best one, right? It's Red Bull, I guess. I don't know. I don't know if that's the move for Sainz. I really don't. But I mean, shop window wise, he's doing a hell of a job right now, right? And I guess if he was to go to Red Bull, and then Max does decide, you know what, I'm dipping all this recent controversy, then he's number 1 driver at Red Bull all of a sudden. But 2026 is not that far away. Thank you, Susan, as well. How long does Ricciardo have till Liam takes over? I mean, I don't think we're there yet by any stretch. It's been 3 races. And obviously Red Bull really did, Christian put his neck out for Ricciardo, basically. And to get him back in, all the Drive to Survive stuff and him doing that test and all that. I don't think they're ready to throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? That's a saying that is appropriate, I think. But damn, Liam's waiting, isn't he? We saw him in the pits. Then cut to him, and he's waiting. He's waiting. Just biding his time. Liam Lawson will be in that car next season. Just depends where Ricciardo is, and Tsunoda, of course. Thank you, Tommy, as well, for the super chat. Ferrari and McLaren team orders nullified any fight. Well, I mean, again, I think Sainz had the measure on Leclerc, and I think Lando. There's no point keeping Lando behind Oscar. Lando had clearly the way better opportunity. If he had a chance to catch Leclerc. Oscar was 18 seconds behind Leclerc by the end. So I don't. Maybe you could make an argument for the Ferrari. Definitely not McLaren though. I just think that's and realistically, right, the way things are, these teams can't really afford to let their drivers fight because they know it's so competitive, which is kind of maybe I don't know, maybe that's a sad negative or byproduct, should I say, of the way things are in F1, where it's so tight amongst the midfield. Maybe the teams are being too kind of passive and interfering too much with these drivers. But I mean, Norris was always going to pass Piastri. He had a big pace gulf when you look at the gap by the end anyway. So, and Ferrari, an opportunity for a 1-2. I can't begrudge them for being a bit, again, let's just chill out, boys. Let's just get this result done. I can't really begrudge them for that. As much as I'd love them to, don't you worry. Don't you worry. And thank you, Kirill, as well, for the super chat. Science of Red Bull makes sense since they would want someone to pick up the pieces if Max DNFs with Checo yet again proved he couldn't do anymore. Which, yeah, look, I think Sainz Verstappen would be sick. I can't lie. And Verstappen would be quicker than Sainz, and Sainz would do a better job than Checo. I agree with all those points, Kirill. I do. But is that the right move for Sainz? I don't know. And Checo did have floor damage, which again, we just don't know how much of a difference. I mean, he claimed again after the race that, the Red Bull wasn't the dominant race car. Who knows? We just don't know. Right, okay. Those are my bangers and clangers. But what about yours? 1,851 of you voted. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Or follow me on Twitch if you're watching on Twitch. Follow me on Twitch. The bitrate looks terrible on Twitch. So, that's the thing. Follow me on YouTube. Right, subscribe to the channel. Like the stream. Interact in any way, shape or form. Right, if you're listening as well, do all that, right? So that you don't miss my polls, right? My polls. You can get involved with the polls. 1,851 of you got on the poll. Okay? Get on the poll. Your bangers and clangers. Race winner. Not race winner. Obviously, we know the race winner. It was Carlos Sainz. Banger drive was also Carlos Sainz. 78% of the vote. 13% Yuki Tsunoda. I respect it. He deserved the shout out. Well done. 2% Norris. 1% Hülkenberg. Hülkenberg, big points for Haas. Fair play. Norris. P3 podium. Fair play. Thank you, Lowell, for the super chat. Greetings from LA, Tommo. Everybody seems to be down on this track, but I think it's underrated. Has some cool and unique quirks. I agree. I think the DRS zones work. I think don't tell me about corner numbers. The run up to the really, really quick left-right, where it's you go right and then left, and then it's the really quick left. That run up to there is Magnussen trying to pull that move on Alex. Kevin, bruv, that they were so close, and they're doing 200 mile an hour through there, or coming up to there. Williams don't have another car. They might only have one car in Japan. Imagine if they'd have had a massive accident there and written off another Williams. No, God, sketchy. That could have been really bad, but I mean, Kevin was aggressive. I think he just about kept it all right, but it was very close to the. But yeah, I think Albert Park. You know what? I think recent years I've not been. The track itself, I've kind of it's been okay, but actually, yeah, I think with these ground effect cars, I think it's a good circuit for this type of car. Actually, I think it works well. I think it works very well. It's decent. But yeah, banger drive. 78% of you, Carlos Sainz. 13% Yuki Tsunoda. 2% Lando Norris. 1% Nico Hülkenberg. Clanger drive. 35% of you got Daniel Ricciardo. 20% George Russell. Of course, crashed at the end. 18% Sergio Perez. Did have floor damage. 8% Lewis Hamilton. Retired. But also it wasn't going very well up until that point, even though the car broke down. So, you know, it is what it is. Banger team. Ferrari, of course, 76% of the vote. 15% go to Haas. Shout out. 8% McLaren. Again, 3-4, very good day for McLaren as well. And then finally, clanger team, 45% of the vote. Mercedes. You put Mercedes over... okay, I know Mercedes was bad. But Sauber, I can't. This team does my head in. This team does my head in. Honestly, these lot stink. Not good enough. Not good enough at all. Okay. So I think it's Sauber. I think it's Sauber over Merc. I mean, one of the Russell DNF was not the Mercedes team fault. It was not fault of the team. It was fault of Russell/Alonso, however you want to look at it. Sauber just, every time Bottas pitted, it was 50,000 hours. And then also Joe had gearbox issues and his front wing disintegrated. Sorry, it's Sauber for me. I disagree. But otherwise, we're aligned, okay? We're aligned. And then finally on the F1 stuff, let's talk F1 fantasy. So, Scuderia Toro Rosso is at 520 points. Easy. Right, so, on the actual official F1 fantasy app, right, you give your team a team name. Scuderia Toro Rosso was rejected. So now my team's just called Team 14782 blah, 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 whatever. They rejected my team name. Why? What's wrong with Scuderia Toro Rosso? Hello, Kane. Welcome in. Why would you... What? That's a great name. That's just... Fuming. You got 23 points, JX. Oh, my days. That's shocker. It's such a good name. I agree, Mickey. I agree. It's a great name. Why would you... Why? In what way is this problematic? The brand doesn't even exist anymore. They're infringing on copyright. Stupid. Anyway... I think I cooked here, to be fair. I think I cooked. 81 point Ferrari, 15 points for Haas, double points. Hulkenberg's in there. Piastri, he only got 4 points less than Lando. So me double captaining him. Yes, taking that off of Charles was an L, for sure, because he got 36. But 520 points I've got now. Pretty good. 200 points this weekend. 200 points. So I think I'm pretty good. Had Max captained. Ben. Well, if you want to join Tommo F1 to see, my fantasy league, the league code is on screen, P3YMECKLC0 or O. I think it's 06. If you want to join. So there's a link in the description below as well if you're watching on YouTube. So join us. Now, this is the part of the stream where I will go over the F2, but I didn't watch enough of the F2 to really make an educated... I'm going to talk about F2 now and bang a clanger. I just didn't. I watched qualifying and I watched the highlights of the sprint race. Did I watch that? I don't even know if I watched the feature race. Who won the feature race? Wait, yeah. No. Sorry. I did watch... I can't even remember what I watched. Because, yeah, Kush was doing really well. And then that safety car came out because Hauger crashed. And then... So them lot had to pit, didn't they? You had Correa, Miney, Crawford, Fittipaldi. They all were hoping for another safety car. Oh, yes, Stanek won the sprint. Yeah, I think I only watched the feature then. Because I don't remember... Yeah, I didn't watch the sprint. But I only watched the feature. What I will say, I predicted Hauger pole. I did. Go back and watch my stream on Thursday. I did predict Hauger pole position. And he got the podium in the sprint, right? But then he crashed in the feature. So, yeah, look, I've not got enough information to impart for F2. So this weekend, I'm not going to go over it because, yeah, I'm not going to talk about something that I just missed this weekend. Time zones and just busy. But it was chaos from what I did see. So fair play F2, bringing us the excitement as per watch F2 more than I do. Right? I'm a hypocrite. What can I say? I'm just a hypocrite. Okay, all teams, team by team. Alpine a bit better this weekend. Ocon doing well actually in qualities, 3 up. You know, I've got my I've been keeping tabs on the quali gaps between teammates in relevant sessions. And where is it? Yeah, it's here. So it is 3-0 to Ocon over Gasly. Looking at their they're qualifying head to head, but then the average gap in sessions that both drivers made. So again, if Ocon gets to Q2, but Gasly doesn't, which is what happened this weekend, then I'm only comparing their best Q1 laps. The average gap over those 3 races is 0.175, which is the more relevant, statistic than 3-0. 3-0 doesn't really tell you anything. So yeah, a bit better this weekend from Alpine. Ocon didn't Ocon have a tear off? I believe Ocon has a tear off as well. He had to do like an extra pit stop at the end, which was a shame for Esteban. Pierre was running all right in the race when the actual race got going. But yeah, that car is chunky but not funky because it weighs too much, right? The paint job might try and be a bit of funky. I'm still not keen on it, but yeah, it's chunky but not funky. The Alpine, shame. Not much more to say on them, to be honest. Williams, I've already made my peace. I do think it, all things considered, it was an error for Williams to swap out. Now, of course, if they had scored a point, look, hindsight's a beautiful thing. I think when you consider everything, I think that the opportunity that this could have been for Logan to show that he can lead the team going forward, and the damage it does PR-wise, and the damage it does to his confidence moving forward, like, I don't know, maybe he bounces back from this and does a really good job. But you can also argue that, there's a chance they might not even have 2 cars in Japan. That is it, because they're sending the chassis back to Grove. They should have a 3rd chassis for China. But if they can't repair that chassis in Grove and get it to Japan, good thing there's a 2-week break. If they can't repair that chassis, they may only have 1 car in Japan, which is crazy. Now, of course, again, Albon and Magnussen came close in the race, but if Logan had raced this race and crashed in this race, which statistically, looking at the body of evidence, he is more likely to crash than Alex. Not specifically at Australia. Alex has a bad record of crashing at Australia, but all in all, Logan is the one more likely to have a shunt. Then I guess maybe that played into it as well. But all things considered, I do think it was a mistake still. If they'd got a point, maybe I'd be saying differently, but there you go. Williams, not a good weekend in any way, shape or form, but not as bad as Sauber's. Honestly, like, I can't, the frustration, the drivers must be so frustrated. They must be so frustrated. Like, Bottas got to Q2, I think he was 13th in quali. Obviously, Joe was looking good on for Q2, and then the front wing just decided to be like, bye. You come to the pit stops and you just get let down time and time again, and it was Bottas on the receiving end of most of it this weekend. He was doing a good job. Maybe, point could have been on for Bottas for sure. Yeah. These wheel nuts. Was it something like, I don't know. I can't substantiate this. I feel like I remember someone on the broadcast saying like one of the wheel nuts went across there and they got like a fine because one of the wheel nuts like went across the pit lane or something. I could be wrong. I'm not sure. But either way, these lot need to sort it out. Okay, Andreas Seidel, you've been there for a good chunk of time now, and it's not really getting much better. So, yeah, €5,000 fine. Yeah, I thought that was from somewhere. So, yeah, Sauber, not good. But Haas, pretty good. You know what? Like, they've sorted out the tyres. They showed last year that one lap pace wasn't an issue. And if they could get on top of their tyre issues, I cannot speak tonight. If they can get on top of that, there'd be a solid midfield, top end of midfield team. And that's exactly where they seem to be. They seem to be clear of Alpine. They seem to be clear of Sauber. Clear of Williams as well, I think. I think all things considered, Haas still at Easter, baby. And look, all of us we thought they would be stone dead last. And you know what? Komatsu, he played us, didn't he? Oh, yeah, testing will... You know, we're going to start the season. We're going to be the worst car. We're going to be terrible. They cooked. You know what? Set expectations low and over-deliver, okay? That's always something you should do in life. You know, double points, happy days. Hulkenberg, Magnussen. Hulkenberg obviously benefited from the timing of the VSC when Lewis's car was getting towed away. A few drivers benefited from that. And I think, who was it who had a bit of a dodgy pit? One of them had a bit of a dodgy pit stop as well. But all in all, well done, Haas. Good day to you, Haas. Better day to you, Racing Bulls. Ricciardo, Tsunoda. Let's start with the positives. Really good drive from Yuki. Got it into Q3. Yeah, in Q2, he was ahead of both Mercedes in Q2. In Q3, qualified P8, isn't it? Can't remember where Yuki qualified. Yuki Coin, Tina. Yuki Coin. Look, we've invested since early days, all right? We've invested early doors. When I say we, I mean me, okay? Because I know you've not all believed. The diamond is getting shinier. And you're seeing it. You're starting to see it now, okay? Now look, Yuki still has his moments, okay? Bahrain was not a good reflection on his mentality in the car, okay? But when you've got this performance that you can unlock and you can deliver, you know, P7 obviously benefited in a big way from, you know, Hamilton. Hamilton probably would have finished ahead of him. The thing is, like, the reason Yuki was able to gain from that 20-second Alonso penalty is because he was within 20 seconds of Alonso. So he was pretty close to Lance for like a good chunk of the race. What do you mean we didn't believe in you? You're the one who said Daniel was doing the business on him this year. Well, look, Drizzy, okay. Just, we all say things. I've been banging the Yuki drum for years, but I firmly believe Daniel Ricciardo will come in this year and show why he is an 8-time race winner? Yeah. 8-time race winner. And that hasn't happened. That has not happened in any way, shape or form. The gap, qualifying 3-0 to Tsunoda. 0.446. That average gap. 0.446. It's been a bad start to the year from Ricciardo. It's weird because, like, when Ricciardo made his debut last year in the AlphaTauri, he was quicker than Yuki that first. When I was there at Hungary, and Ricciardo had the stronger weekend straight out the gate. Really good in Mexico as well. But then these down moments, it's worrying because you can argue that it's kind of in many ways how 2022 went at McLaren. Wait, no, 21. Yeah, 21. Sorry, more 21 than 22. The highs were really good. The win. Mexico in 21 as well for Ricciardo. It's not good. It's not good, Daniel. He's got to look in himself. And I think, Tina, you spot on. Confidence. I think it's confidence. I don't know. I mean, he seemed shell-shocked after qualifying. Like, I really felt for him. It was just like, oh, this hasn't sunk in that I did track limits and like Matt in Q1 and Yuki's in Q3. It's the problem. Once the pressure picks up, it just becomes a self-fulfilling thing. I think a lot for me is like as well, how much is Yuki the GOAT? No, he's not the GOAT, right? Hyperbole, that's called. How much is Yuki doing bits right now? And Ricciardo's just all right, but Yuki's making him look bad. Or is Yuki doing all right and Daniel's doing terribly? Like, where are these two drivers on this spectrum? Because I think Yuki has improved and I think he has become a very, very complete driver. Yes, he's still not 100% of the way there, but I think his confidence is consistency is getting there. Come on, how is Yuki, not Hamilton? That's why I said it's hyperbole. Hyperbole. And Daniel is just, I don't know. I just don't know. But Daniel needs to pick up quick time because the whole reason he's in this car is to get a Red Bull seat. And right now, if these performances continue, he has got no chance. He's got absolutely no chance. Solov's got a better chance of that seat than he has as things are going. Good day, Slepsy. Welcome. We'll see. It's not looking good, Brev. Exactly, Rohit. Exactly. We'll see. We'll see how things go. And it's not looking good for Mercedes either, is it? Look, sometimes predictions are wrong. Like me being like, Ricciardo will show why. And look, there's still 21 races to go. Ricciardo could 21-3 Yuki in qualifying. I doubt it, but we'll see. But I did, me putting Mercedes fourth in my preseason predictions behind McLaren, behind Ferrari, behind Red Bull, obviously. Wasn't the most popular pick. But regardless of Russell's crash, right, his pace was, he's quicker than the Aston Martins, but nowhere near the McLaren and the Ferrari. And then Lewis, his car braking. Mercedes making the same noises that they've been making for 2 years now. They're making all these changes and the car's still really unpredictable and it's really... Just these lot just haven't... 26 is their opportunity. This ground effect, it's not for them. It's not working. It's not worked, okay? The car's not going to get massively better. And it's not going to be massively better in 2025. Lewis is now looking at... Lewis is on the sideline. Yeah, I've retired. Oh, who's that? Who's that P1? Ferrari. Oh, who's P2? Oh, another Ferrari. At least the guy's reliable, didn't age well. Charmander, I forgot about that. Oh dear. Mercedes. Toto. Look, I said it in my one change I think every team should make, which preempted Günther Steiner's sacking. Is Toto the right person to lead that team forward? Is a team principal? You look at how teams are moving towards this engineer. You look at Andrea Stella. You look at Ao Komatsu. I don't know. I think questions should rightly be considered. Toto Wolff owns that team. And part of the reason why I was so disappointed with his reaction when we went to Vegas and it was 100% a false start is a very accurate way of putting it, and he threw his toys out the pram. And he didn't sympathise with Fred in that moment is because he's a team owner and he's got vested interest in the commercial viability of the sport. He's not just a team principal who can focus on that job and that job only. I don't know if he's the right man for that job. And Fred, Fred's not an engineer. But what Fred is a team principal with years of experience in that specific role, be that from GP2 days, ART with Lewis and Nico. See all this time at Sauber, his time at Renault, he's all these different teams, and he's done that team principal job for a long time. Nobody watches it in real time anyway. Come on, that really... Oh, Patrick, when he said that, it didn't sit right with me. I don't know. I don't know if he's the right man to take that team forward. I think maybe he should consider, can someone else do this job? And, I be the Zach Brown, bring in your Andrea Stella, bring in a separate entity to really run that team. I don't know. 2.1k people watch. What are you watching this mug with like? What are you doing? Not a good day for Mercedes. Not a good day for Mercedes. Aston Martin, again, Stroll, pretty chill race. Should we talk about Fernando now? Let's talk about Fernando Alonso and George Russell, shall we? Now that we're on the Aston Martin section of the stream. And Exhibit A, courtesy of F1 Tempo. Follow them on Twitter. We have some analytics, some data, some lines, some curves on a graph. Okay? Follow F1 Tempo on Twitter if you want to get hold of all this stuff. Okay? Now, if you don't know, of course you know. George was following Fernando, chasing him down, goes into high-speed turn 6. I don't know the turns. Whatever the corner was. High-speed corner. Same corner that Alex crashed. Same corner that Hauger crashed in the F2 as well. And dirty air from Alonso. Goes over the gravel, into the wall, bang, over. Bless him as well. George was proper, like, on the radio, he was scared. He was. Like, he's hanging in such a vulnerable position at one of the quickest corners on the track as well. And there was a delay for yellow flags were waving, but the delay, whether you think it should have been red flag or VSC or whatever, like, as soon as that's happened, why is a button not being pressed? At least a VSC button. At least. That's crazy. Now, watching it live, I'll go over it before I put a poll out. I'll get you lot to do a poll on YouTube. So I want to know what you lot think, because people seem very split around this. So when I was watching it live, and when I saw George's replay as well live, I was like, well, he's just put it in the wall, like, obviously. And actually, because I watched the race at I started watching it at 2:30, something like that. So super late on, which meant as soon as the race finished, I could then go straight on Twitter and just see all the updates. And straight away I saw Alonso penalty, and I was like, what for? Why has he got a penalty? What are they talking about? And then obviously I go and I see he slowed down too much, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, what? Are you sure? Then obviously I see the traces, okay? And this is the evidence that the stewards used, and they basically said that Alonso drove in an erratic or unusual or unexpected manner, however you want to put it, that led to the incident. They did claim that, they didn't look at the fact that there was actually a crash or anything, but I mean, it's hard to not consider that as part of it. But again, we all think, do you consider the outcome? Theoretically, you shouldn't consider the outcome. Basically, you can see from this, right? So this line, these lines here, right? These lines that go up the top, you can see this is the white is the lap where the crash occurred, and the other lines, so green, dark green, yellow, and light green, are the laps before. So laps 54, 55, 56. Again, audio only, I apologise. You just kind of have to listen. So you can see the trace. So this is the throttle trace, okay? Completely straight line on all three of those laps. On lap 54, he kind of lifts a little bit before fully taking his foot off the throttle. More so, right? You can see the trace here. And they're all very consistent. And the same goes for the brake, right? The brake, all three of those laps, he doesn't touch the brake until about here. And then boom, goes fully on. That's on lap 57. It's like an immediate, it's like straight on, boom, straight off, right? Of the laps is a little bit more progressive. So the point here is that Fernando did brake, here, then took his foot off the brake, and you can see from the throttle that he kind of takes his foot off the throttle, but then goes back onto the throttle, and then off again. Okay, so because I've seen a lot of people be like, "Oh, Fernando's just driving a different line. It's the creative different driver lines, right?" Which you on lots of corners in Zandvoort, for example, the banked turn, you can do lots of different lines through that. In this instance, his broke, lifted off, and then broke again. Now, that is not objectively, that's not just driving a different line. That is either purposefully brake testing someone or making a mistake. Because it doesn't matter if you're going to drive a different line. No racing driver brakes, then lifts off, then brakes again if they're doing what they want to do. You either brake late or you brake early and then use that braking early to get on the throttle earlier, or you brake late and then get on the throttle later. You don't brake then... What was an old Top Gear episode with Jackie Stewart and James May? You never... When you... What is it? It's like when you put your foot on the brake... No, when you put on the throttle coming out of a corner, you only put it on when you're never going to take it off again. So as soon as you start putting it on, if you do that again, you've messed it up. You go on in the TVR. That's it. Rivet head quality. So apparently, again, from what I've read, what I've heard, when this went to the stewards, Alonso claimed that essentially this was a error. The reason that he went on the brake and then came off again and went back on it is because he broke earlier than he meant to. He claimed he meant to brake early to get on the throttle earlier to carry more speed out of that corner, and he made an error. So this is either an error from Fernando in his driving, which an error doesn't deserve a 20-second punishment in theory, especially when it's that error causes dirty air that then someone else crashes. Alternatively, he did purposefully brake early to try and whatever. I feel like I've kind of explained it as best as I can. And also, thank you, Sam, for the super chat. Turns out I misspelt my pup's name last week in chat. It's Kepler, not Kepley. Keep up the great content. A sad Daniel Ricciardo 3 fan. Sam, still 21 races to go, all right? I'm sure it will be fine. I'm sure it'll be fine. But then, of course, George is a racing driver. Yes, he's within dirty air of Fernando, but he crashed. He's in control of his car. He didn't hit Fernando. He wasn't close to hitting Fernando. And he crashed his car. Fernando got a 20-second penalty. So I think the severity of the penalties may be a separate thing. So the poll question is, did Fernando deserve the penalty? A penalty. Drivers shouldn't be responsible for their dirty air, which is, Hamza, I've seen that quote made a few times by people. And I think you're right. Did Fernando deserve a penalty, yes or no? I'm going to leave you to it. I'm not going to interject anymore my thoughts. Because honestly, I'm really on the fence. I'm really on the fence about this. Kenny, thank you for the super chat. There are no rules saying you can't slow down before a corner. DRS chicken equals no. Pen, Perez 21, Megason 24, no pen. Should not have been a penalty. And look, again, a lot of people have referenced previous... Look, you look at Magnussen's activities in Saudi Arabia, and you can absolutely argue similarly that you can... But then Magnussen did get a penalty. He got a 10-second. He didn't get a 20-second. And you can look at precedent for sure. But ultimately... I'm not like precedent is one thing. Do you believe, in your opinion, did what Fernando do merit a penalty? Now, I'm not saying did it merit a 20-second penalty. I think that's a separate thing. But did it merit punishment, I guess? Thank you, Dixon, as well. Dixon apologist. Worth mentioning, Nando's penalty was issued on erratic driving, not causing a collision. Indeed. It's driving that led... Yeah, driving that was erratic or, braking early, like unpredictable, etc., etc. You can, Because again, Russell and George said this post race that he he had a gap to Fernando, and obviously approaches that corner anticipating based on the laps previous, as you can see from the Delta, and it's one of the That's the thing as well. It's one of the fastest corners on track, right? I mean, you look at the speeds. 280 kilometers on lap 56 was Fernando's speed going into that. 280 kilometers an hour. Which is, 180? About 180 miles an hour? I don't know what it is. Oh, very interesting poll. Very interesting. It kind of hasn't really... 54% of you think he did not deserve a penalty. And 46% of you think he did deserve a penalty. Now, again... we don't have the same stewards at every race. And that is part of the problem around precedent. If 54% of you, right, there's 2,167 of you here, plus 23 of you on Twitch, right? If 54% of you wouldn't have given Alonso a penalty, 46% of you would have. If you've got different driver stewards every weekend, because I've seen plenty of drivers tweeting that this penalty is madness, okay? Racing drivers tweeting this, that this penalty is crazy. Now, of course, if you're driving GTs versus open wheelers that are very reliant on external downforce, it's not exactly the same, but they are racing drivers, and I'm sure some, just because you're a racing driver doesn't mean you're going to agree all the time. It is a madness killing a sport. I honestly, I don't know. Because I think more of Alonso that this was a mistake. Like, he broke so early. Right? I don't think it was a mistake from Fernando. Look, my belief is that Fernando broke early in an attempt to... because after that corner, there's a long run to then a really good over-opportunity. Basically, the only overtaking opportunity. So I think Fernando did purposely brake early to try and catch George out somewhat and make George, compromise his entrance into... because I don't think Fernando does this by accident. He broke early so he can get better traction to counter Russell's DRS. Yeah, but that's not what these throttle traces show, that he broke early, but then he went back on throttle. You don't do that if you're braking early to get better traction. That's not what that is. That's not how that works. If that was the case, then this line, if Fernando wanted to do that, he would have broke it would have been like here. It would have been somewhere like here, so that he's not having to go back on the throttle again. But then look. See this white line here. It is true that on lap 57, he got back on the throttle earlier than he had on the 3 previous laps. But this bit and going back up isn't necessary. I think Fernando is a better driver to make that for that to be a mistake. So I think he has, and again, look, the statement he's put out on Twitter after basically being like, this is racing. This is what he believes I think he's done this on purpose, and I think he believes this is fair in racing, and many other racing drivers believe this is fair in racing. And I think if these were like GT cars that aren't so sensitive on their aero, I would fully agree. Where dirty air is such a thing, especially at this corner, I don't know where I sit on it. I don't. But I think Fernando's a better driver than for this to be a mistake. He literally said himself in the post race when he went to the stewards, like when the steward said to him, "Well, why did you brake and then get back on throttle?" He was like, "Oh, because I made a mistake. Like I misjudged. I broke too early. I meant to brake early, but I broke too early." I don't think he makes that mistake. I don't think Fernando makes that mistake. I think he knew exactly what he was doing. And you can argue, like, I don't even know if I think that deserves a penalty. Yes, of course, George lost it on his own. But he was affected by the dirty air. I'm coming down ever so slightly on no penalty. I think that's where but I've looked at this a lot since it's like, I think I agree with and it's funny because actually, trust me, I'm not just saying this to pander, but I'm about 55-45, I feel like, on no penalty, and that's exactly how you lot have voted. It's dangerous driving. Yeah, but is it like where people take different approaches to corners to try and defend? Where does it become dangerous driving? Like, yes, he slowed down earlier than he needed to, but also he didn't slam on the brakes. It wasn't George running into the back of him. George expected Alonso to brake at a certain point. He broke way before that, and he lost it through the dirty air. But his approach was dangerous. I mean, it's the kind of like, if this is a slow speed corner, there's zero issue, and I don't think anyone's claiming a penalty. And it's the speed of the corner that does make this very, very sketchy and very, very questionable. Because I firmly believe that Alonso meant to do this. And his defending of it on Twitter almost afterwards, his statement. Well, hang on, let me find what. I'm sure I should post it on Twitter. I believe that he thinks that this move was acceptable, and lots of other racing drivers have looked at this and said they believe it's acceptable. Right. So here's Fernando's statement. A bit surprised by a penalty at the end of the race regarding how we should approach the corners or how we should drive the race cars. At no point do we want to do anything wrong at these speeds. I believe that without gravel on that corner, on any other corner in the world, we will never be even investigated. In F1, with over 20 years of experience with epic duels like Imola 2005-06, Brazil 2023, changing racing lines, sacrificing entry speed to have good exit from corners is part of the art of motorsport. We never drive at 100% every race lap and every corner. We save fuel, tyres, brakes, so being responsible for not making every lap the same is a bit surprising. We have to accept it and think about Japan to have more pace and fight for positions further up the field. Thank you, team. That is what Fernando has said on Twitter about this. His statement doesn't acknowledge the fact that he was on the brake but then off the brake again. He just says he broke early to get a better exit, which he did get on the throttle before. That's the thing. That is true. But this part was that's not the thing. It should have been straight down and then up. And he's claimed he's made a mistake there. I think Fernando's better than that. I don't think that was a mistake. Like him in wheel to wheel. Like look at with Checo at Brazil. Like exactly what he referenced. That this is the guy you trust above else. I don't think he made a mistake. I just think he did this because he thinks that this move was fair, and a lot of other drivers think it's fair. And I understand why a lot of people would think this is fair. But yeah, why didn't Aston protest? I don't know. But either way, George's Russell. And look, George's race was ended. He crashed. He ultimately drives his car, and he is responsible for, especially when there's no contact. But also, you can't I'm not going to fully come down on George for this because, yeah, I can imagine if you're racing, you're expecting a certain react, and these cars are so. I mean, we saw it with so many drivers at that corner. It's very easy to trip up. George's Russell, I know. But yeah, so I think I'm slightly no penalty, but it's a tough one. I wouldn't have wanted to be making that decision. And certainly at first glance, I was like, what are you talking about? But actually seeing this, I'm like, okay, I kind of get it. I get it. I get why he got a penalty, but I probably wouldn't have given him one. Thank you, Pit Lane Pulse, for the super chat. I think Nando was just being wily old Nando. No malicious intent, maybe gamesmanship at worst, yet George crashed from his dirty air, but penalty harsh. Yeah, I think as far as Fernando is concerned, what he did was fair. I don't think he made a mistake, in my opinion, but who knows? Who knows? Right, okay, we've talked for long enough about Aston Martin, and we've been going for an hour, 17 minutes, so let's now talk about McLaren. Any Papayans in the chat? Any Papayans out there? Must be pretty satisfied with that one. I was kind of maybe thinking that that Lando could have maybe caught Charles. I was kind of somewhat excited. But yeah, I think that they've got to be happy with that. Seeing some orange hearts in the chat, love it. Yeah, I think you got to take that. When's the McLaren upgrade coming? Actually, I don't know when it's coming. I know they've got an upgrade in the works. But yeah, good drive from Norris. Very clean. Looked pretty comfortable in the end. Again, he had the pace on Oscar this weekend. Oscar's getting there. He's still not at Lando's level. For sure. Especially in race trim. Quali trim, it's close. And I think Oscar felt like he left a bit on the table in quali. But all in all, McLaren in a good place. Not much more to say. I think that, Ferrari have established themselves as the first contender, but we'll see with those upgrades. The thing is, there's no guarantee an upgrade brings an upgrade in performance. Yes, of course, McLaren last year, big upgrade. Before Austria, Lando immediately cooks with it. Look at Aston Martin last year. They bring up great grades, don't cook with it. Now, of course, McLaren have done it correctly. Aston Martin struggled somewhat, but there's no guarantee that every change that McLaren bring is going to bring performance. You got to hope so if you're a McLaren fan, but there's no guarantees. So yeah, pretty good all told for McLaren. Zach's extended his contract to 2030. Sorry, so that's pretty good for him. Grazie ragazzi. Ferrari. I said this so many times last season that I felt like Leclerc Sainz is the best, most complete driver pairing on the grids. People would, Mercedes, sure. I think individual talent-wise there's an argument for it, but working together, bouncing off of each other. Charles got that bit of pace in hand, I think, on both drivers on their day. I think Charles has got that bit of pace in hand, but I think Carlos has got that racing IQ that Fernando Fernando has. They have split up going into 2025. They will be splitting up the best driver pairing on the grid. And you got to hope, if you're Ferrari, you got to hope that Lewis can come in. And look, understandably there's going to be question marks around Lewis because that car isn't performing with him in it, and George is doing a better job. Lewis is fantastic, of course. Lewis is better than Carlos. Lewis at his peak is better than Carlos at his peak, but it's not all about peak. You've got two teammates together, and Lewis is going to want to come in, and he's going to Ferrari because he wants to win a world championship. Now, I think Carlos has a very similar... He's going to have a similar mindset, at least his time at Ferrari. He doesn't believe he's number 2 at that team. And I think he's shown, he's got this race win. This is now his 3rd in F1. And he's put himself firmly on the map, but it's a tough to let this driver pairing go apart. And look, I get why it's happened for sure. And I think Lewis should be very, very chuffed with the decision he's made. I think no one ever thought it was going to happen. Yeah, it's kind of always a bit of a pipe dream amongst a lot of fans, but you got to wonder, ain't you? You got to wonder. Thank you, Lucas, for the super chat. So Charles was visibly pissed in the post interview. Yeah, look, he didn't have a great. Yeah, again, they qualified 5th, finished 2nd. It was a good progress in the race ultimately. Cranked that front wing on, but it's an opportunity. I think that's why Charles is pissed more than anything, because there's not many opportunities where Max breaks down because he is dominant in this sport. So when the only dominant element, the 1 of 20 that is dominant, when they DNF and you don't win, you're going to be pissed. Of course you are. So yeah, we'll see. But regardless, right now, Ferrari is looking good. Pit stops were immaculate. Ferrari, operationally, are not the clown show they used to be. Fred has come in and done what he needed to do to turn that team around. And at least on that side, they're doing bits. They really are. Not much more to say, really, on Ferrari. Not much more to say. Because, yeah, Red Bull wasn't looking great all weekend. Max getting that pole was... Claim to some, it was a bit of a surprise. It shouldn't be a surprise when Max puts it on pole. No matter how... There's been many a time where it's not been right until Q3 that Max has been able to, right, okay, I'm going to drag this lap out. And that's a credit to... It's a credit to, GP as his performance engineer, but a credit to Max for... He pulls it out when it matters. But yeah, the brake locked on, right rear, caught fire, boom, big explosion coming down the side, outside, dramatic. No points for Max Verstappen. Turns out, Red Bull are human after all. The machine might be a machine, but it's designed and built by humans, and things go wrong. Ferrari clowns have turned into Cirque du Soleil. I like that, Jamie. That's good. That's very good indeed. But yeah, Red Bull, not a great day. Checo, again, it's difficult to... qualified 3rd, which is okay. Pretty good. But then obviously gets that penalty from Hülkenberg getting in his way. And in the race, damage. I can't really make any judgments on Perez. I mean, by the end of the race, he was what? 40 odd seconds behind Sainz, I think. Maybe 30. Can't actually remember. But yeah, floor damage. I don't know how much that affected his performance. But he didn't seem to believe that car had the pace either way. Is it 56? Was he 56 behind? Blimey. Okay. But I'm not gonna go in on Checo because I just don't know how much of that was the flaw. So when there is that unknown, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt on this one. We'll see in Japan though. Japan's a big one because a lot of high speed corners. That's typically where Sergio comes a bit unstuck in that Red Bull. So We've got to see. We've got to see. Right, okay, I think we are about done. Almost an hour and a half of me waffling. Thank you for joining me wherever you are in the world, whether you're live on YouTube, whether you're after the fact on YouTube, whether you're live on Twitch as well, multi-streaming. Look at me. 21 of you, love it. And if you're listening to this audio only after the fact as well, appreciate you all taking the time. 2-week break now. Japan, next race. Japan. I'm actually going to be away for the next race. I am going on holiday. But the pre and post race Chinwags will still be coming. And they will still be coming live. That is the plan anyway. Might not be able to do them live. I'm going to try and do them live. But if I can't do them live, I'll just pre-record them. And just upload them. Because I'm going to be away. But yeah, thank you all for joining me wherever you are in the world. Appreciate you taking the time. Thank you, David, Michael, Harv Gold, Charmander, Trolls, Gianna, FH4 Player, Techno Andrew, Anthony, AW, Xavier, Rex, PP Plug, Alif, Ponder, Drizzy, Priest, Jamie, Liam, Raina, Halita, Freya, and also on Twitch, Beta Cactus, Tommy, Nacho, Kamal, Roms, Carandash, Bugatti, Duncan, Barners, Packard, MJ, Gill. Thank you all for taking the time. I do appreciate it. You enable me to do what I do. And for that, I am eternally grateful. My name's Tommo. Thanks again. Have a good one. Ta-da. End on you.